Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning to those of you that are on the West Coast. I know we had some folks joining from the West Coast as well. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Susan Pilon. I am the Alumni Council Communities Committee Chair and also the president of the Wake Tampa St. Petersburg community. Also on the call, I wanted to recognize a couple of people that we have on the call with us. We have Evan McMillan, which I'm sure many of you know from the alumni engagement staff, and he's going to help answer any questions today. Evan is the director of regional programs and engagement. And we also have Jennifer Richwine on the line, who's the executive director of Wake Washington. So if anybody has any questions on Wake Washington, we can have Jennifer jump in on that as well. So thank you all for attending, everybody that's on the webinar. And let me just tell you a little bit about what we're hoping to accomplish today. This webinar is really designed for Wake Forest alumni and parents and friends who are interested in learning more about how they can be involved in their local Wake communities. So what we're going to do is share an overview of the Alumni Engagement Office and the work that they do, highlight the communities program, the Wake Communities programs, and the impact that they have in our communities. And we'll also discuss some of the signature programs that you may want to be involved in your own communities. Maybe some of these are already going and you can help engage in them, or something that you might want to even start. And then lastly, we'll dive into the community volunteer resources that are available. This includes the website, the Facebook forum, and the volunteer toolkit. So we'll get towards the end of our program today. Like I mentioned, I would love to entertain any questions throughout the webinar, so feel free to ask. I'll make sure to pause as we go through and see if anyone has any questions. And we'll also leave a little time at the end for questions. So without further ado, let's get into our program. Okay, so a little bit about the Alumni Engagement Office. As you can see on this slide, the Alumni Engagement Office is really very involved and busy with a lot of programs that they put on that help enhance the alumni lives. So the Alumni Engagement Office has 15 full-time staff members and 3 more who work at the Birthplace Museum in Wake Forest, North Carolina. They execute a number of programs both on campus and across the country, and actually even around the world, executing programs in London and China, which is pretty exciting. So we are truly global. They also partner with many departments across campus to support those departments' work and enhance the experience and value that can be brought to the Wake Forest alumni experience. So a couple of those offices that I want to mention, there's the APCD office, which is the Alumni Personal and Career Development Office. And that office supports alumni in their careers and personal lives post-college through mentoring programs and by sharing their wisdom around making the most of your time, talents, and interests as they relate to the time that you spend professionally. They also work with the athletic department. So typically once a year, they host an away game tailgate where they have food and drinks and an experience. And that is a charge to alumni. This year, it's going to be in Houston at the race game. I hear that there is going to be margaritas and Tex-Mex. So if that's a game that you can get to, it sounds like it would be a really fun one and a great way to connect with other alums. And lastly, the Wake Forest Development Office. The alumni engagement team coordinates with the development officers to identify potential volunteers and also to support their efforts to raise money for the university. A couple of other items I want to mention on this slide that we will be talking more about. We'll talk some more about homecoming and reunion weekend, which is coming up. next month, September 20th to 22nd. Also, the Alumni Council, as I mentioned, I'm the communities chairperson for the Alumni Council. The Alumni Council is a group of alums throughout the country who come together twice a year at Wake Forest and learn about the latest of what's going on campus. And my mind is always blown when I'm up there at what has changed and how amazing it is and the amazing work that's going on at the university and the students that are just phenomenal. But we also then go back out into our communities and bring back what we've learned to our communities, and also we're advocates for the university. I also, we're going to talk about with the Wake community and affinity programs in detail in the next couple of slides, so I'll save those for a couple of minutes. I also wanted to note that the Alumni Engagement Office is involved in the Loyal Deek program, so hopefully you all are familiar with that program and are all Loyal Deeks yourself. And if you are, you've probably gotten your swag already for this year, which is pretty cool. I drink out of my Loyal Deek cup every day, and I have it's really rainy down here in Florida right now, so I've been very excited about this year's Loyal Deek swag that I got just a week or two ago. It couldn't have been more timely. They're also involved in a couple of other programs that I just want to mention really quickly, which is the Wake Women's Weekend. So I hope some of you have been involved in that program in the past. It is a phenomenal weekend, really connects you back to campus. I've been away from that academic environment for a while now, and it's so exciting to get back and engage with that. And they've just put on a phenomenal program that happens every other year. So the next one will be in 2021. It's typically held in March, so be on the lookout for that. And if you have the chance to go, it's phenomenal. Another one I wanted to mention is Camp Third Act. This is something I haven't been to yet, but it's really about focusing on that next phase or that next chapter in your life. I think we all go through those phases these days in life, and what an awesome thing for Wake to take action on and put together a program around that. So I'm excited to try that out at some point and go to that programming. So a couple of things we want to talk about here are, like I mentioned, we're going to go into the affinity groups and the communities. Affinity groups, for those of you that aren't familiar, are communities of alumni, parents, students, and friends of Wake Forest that connect on the basis of shared interests and experiences. So these are not geographically based. So we have lots of different affinity groups. I'm involved in several of them, even though I may not be at a local chapter for some of them, like Wake on Wall Street or Wake Now, which is Network of Women. But a couple of highlights I wanted to mention is AFUBA, which is the Association of Wake Forest University Black Alumni. That's our first official Wake Forest University affinity group that was started, which is really exciting. And then our most recent one is the Wake the Arts Affinity Group. This was formed for alumni and parents who are employed or interested in the arts. So it's very exciting. We kind of have something for everyone. I also mentioned the Wake Now, the Network of Women group, and there's actually 3 chapters of that group, one in Washington, D.C., one in New York City, and one in Atlanta. So I'm going to take a moment and pause here and see if anyone has any questions so far. Okay. We'll move on. And again, feel free to ask any questions throughout the program. Wake communities. So our communities are geographic, regional networks made up of alumni, parents, and friends interested in connecting with one another in their local community. And we work with the staff at Wake Forest and the Alumni Engagement Office. And usually it's the volunteer leaders that are really supporting these signature programs, which we're going to talk about quite a bit today, but also plan activities to build and strengthen ties between one another and Wake, which is really special. Like I mentioned, they're inclusive of alumni, parents, and families and friends of the university, and we welcome them and encourage them to participate. If some of you are like me and say, what's a friend of Wake Forest? Those are people who are not alumni or parents, but are fans of Wake Forest, or they've given a gift to Wake in the past, or maybe have season tickets to some of our sporting events. So it's somebody that's been involved or known about Wake for a long time. This might be more people in North Carolina sometimes, but maybe somebody was just touched by Wake Forest somewhere in their life, and they've become a friend and want to support or be involved in the Wake community. So that's nice that we do have those people out there as well. A couple of other statistics that I want to share. We have 70,000 alumni and over 800 active volunteers through the communities, through the affinity groups, through boards and councils, through the Deacon Club, and through the Call to Conversation program and other programs as well. If for those of you on the line, if you haven't attended a Call to Conversation program, they are absolutely just engaging and special and dynamic, and I would highly encourage, if you get the opportunity to participate, to be a part of that. It's really, really a special event. A couple of numbers to share with what's happened with our communities. We've had off-campus events between July 1st of 2018 and July 1st of 2019. Over 300 events have been held. These include the signature events that we're going to talk about, affinity group events, and all other community events. It might be a game watch or a specialized event in different communities. So lots of events are going on with over 6,000 attendees at those events. So we've got quite a few of our alums who are being involved. And the majority of these events, like I mentioned, are planned and executed by the alumni volunteers with the support of the alumni engagement staff. We really couldn't do it without them, and they're wonderfully supportive. They help market and advertise and help give us guidance and advice on these events. So it's really phenomenal. So let's go forward and talk about our signature regional programs, and then we'll pause after each one of these and see if anyone has any questions. This is the calendar of the signature programs for fiscal year 2020. Oh man, it's hard to say 2020. But so we're going to touch on each of these in the next 3 slides. We have a Wake Welcomes events that are happening throughout August and September, local love feasts in December, and Pro Humanitate Days, which will be April 25th through March 2nd of 2020. Depending on the alumni population where you live, you may want to be involved in one or all of these. They may all be appropriate, or you may be already having some of these. You may want to add one of these if you don't have them. So like I said, we'll talk about them in some more detail. I think you all see also noted on here is homecoming, and even though it's not a community event, if you will, it really is something to talk about for a moment, because it's coming up next month, and it is a phenomenal experience. If you haven't been back to campus in the past 4 years, I think you should mark your calendars and try to get back, because it's quite different. On Friday, there will be Party So Dear, which is a really neat party, and we actually have the Temptations playing this year, which should be a lot of fun. And also on Friday night after Party So Dear, the class years ending in the 4s and the 9s will have their reunions this year. And that's just a great way to reconnect with some old friends and see some of your friends that you may not have seen in a little while. So let's get into the signature program. And like I said, after this, we'll kind of pause and see if anybody has any questions on these programs. So the nice thing about the signature programs is that these are really gaining some traction. We've been having these every year, and when you are trying to make your community grow, I think it's great to have these signature programs that people know to expect. It's not a one-off, it's something that's going to continually happen. So the one that's coming up, and some of them are probably even already happening, are the Wake Welcomes events. So what these are about, they're held in cities across the country, and they're about bringing the Wake Forest alumni community together to welcome the newest grads to their first destination cities post-graduation. This is also an opportunity for recently relocated Deeks of all ages and new parents and families to get together, socialize, network, just meet other members of their local community. So in 2018, we held 17 events across the country, and 201 2018 graduates attended and were welcomed into their local communities. In 2019, there's already 27 events planned. So this is growing. They're throughout, again, like I said, August and September. And the goal is to have 500 plus 2019 grads attend. Again, I think if you know of anybody that's relocated, I have friends all around the country from Wake Forest, so I'm, telling them, hey, if you haven't been to something lately, this is a great event if there's one going on in your city. So if you know either of somebody who hasn't been to something in a while, or if you know of somebody that's moved, this is a great way for them to get introduced into that community. Also, in the Wake, Tampa, St. Pete area, what we do, we host a separate new student reception. So we invite all the parents to come because we host our Wake Welcomes event on August 26th this year, which is the first day of classes. So it's kind of a neat connection to have the parents come while their students are having their first day of classes and have them have a connection to their local Wake Forest community and meet some Deacon family, which is really nice to be able to do. Some communities actually use these events to welcome the incoming students, and that's another great way to do that as well. So let me pause here and see if anybody has any questions on the Wake Welcomes event. Okay, well, let's move forward. One of our other signature programs are our local love feasts. And I'm sure many of you remember being on campus and being part of Love Feast, and what an exceptional experience that is, a very time-honored campus tradition. And the local Love Feasts are about experiencing this in your hometown and bringing that tradition out into our communities. So the Love Feasts are live streamed, and you can do this in a home. It can be done in a church or some other venue. As long as you have the audio visual requirements, you're good to go. All the official makings for the Love Feast are sent ahead of time to you. So that's the candles and the programs and the coffees and the Moravian buns. And, since this was such an important part of many of our student experience, I think it's a really neat way to reconnect to campus. And we really have great feedback, very positive feedback from everybody that's attended. In 2018, this was held in 26 cities, actually 3 international locations participated as well, and we had 773 participants, so it's quite popular when it's done. This year, I just want to note, it's on Sunday, December 8th, which is actually the second Sunday in December, so that's a little deviation from the norm. I think it's normally the first Sunday, but this year it's the second Sunday in December, so mark your calendars for December 8th. One thing that, just to note, there's 2 Love Feasts now that are held on campus. Waite Chapel has a capacity of 2,250 people, and often it's standing room only. So again, I think it's a nice way to connect local parents even, for those of us that are alums, to go back to that time that was very special for us, but parents might go to this event and know that their children are participating on campus, which is kind of neat as well. There are 2 services now. There's a 4:30 service and an 8 p.m. service. Here in the Tampa area, what we tend to do for this is we will do the 4:30 service and do a modified call to conversation program after. So that's really fun as well. And, again, if you have been part of a call to conversation, that is a really special event. So we do one around holiday traditions, and I think it's just very impactful. We've gotten so much good feedback from the people that have attended that with us. We also are a little bit lucky in this area. We hold it in a church, and they have great audiovisual equipment, and the church happens to look a little bit like Wake Chapel, which is kind of special. And also the senior pastor of the church that we do it at here locally graduated from Wake Forest Divinity School. So that's kind of a neat connection as well. But I've seen a lot of success and heard about a lot of people really enjoying these, even if it's just in someone's home, which can be very special and intimate as well. So let me pause on the Love Feast and see if anybody has any questions on that. And if you'd like to send a chat, I noticed that Evan just sent that out, that you're welcome to actually send a chat as well if you'd like to ask a question, and he'll probably be looking at that a bit as well. Okay. Well, our last signature program that I'm going to talk about here is Pro Humanitate Days. And our Pro Humanitate Days, it's a week-long series of events hosted by alumni in their local cities, and it really shows the world that hashtag Good Wears Black. Alumni across the country and the globe, so London participated in this last year, came together to support local causes and organizations in 2019. Excuse me. Hosted 61 projects, and that's the most to date. For 2020, this will take place from Saturday to Saturday, April 25th to May 2nd. And I think that Pro Humanitate Days are one of the easiest ways to get involved in your Wake community. And you're making an impact and really showing that Wake has an impact throughout the country, which I think is very special as well. You can host the event, and the Alumni Engagement Office will help promote it to all the Wake Forest family, alumni, parents, friends in your area. Any question on Pro Humanitate Days?
Susan, this is Evan. I will just add this in very quickly and mention Jennifer Richwine, who I know you mentioned is on the line here, the executive director of the Wake Washington, and lives up there full time. The committee of volunteers that she works with has a subcommittee that focuses just on Pro Humanitate events, and they schedule 3 or 4 during Pro Humanitate Days that week, and then throughout the year they're also working with nonprofits and organizations to schedule projects and invite the alumni community to participate in. So to reiterate your point of how this is a very easy way to be involved, a lot of people are already doing volunteer work, and it's really as easy as coordinating with our office, with me or my colleagues, and sending a message out to folks in y'all's local communities to be involved and help volunteer.
Thank you so much, Evan. That's great perspective. They're really special. I think it feels really good. There was actually in ours this year, we prepared food for the homeless. And we had a father and son who went to 3 different events around Florida. So that was pretty neat as well. Okay, so signature programs are largely managed by the Alumni Engagement Office with coordinated marketing and communications. But there's these other events that can happen as well, and they're really up to you all. It's up to you all to think of what might be something that's interesting in your community, and they're led by your ideas. So we have things like game watch events here. We've done a bowl game watch for the past couple of years when people might not be able to go to the bowl game, which that's been very special and exciting and fun to be able to root for the Deeks with fellow Deeks. There are networking happy hours that happen, arts and culture excursions. We've had an event at a museum before, which is really neat. So you can think of what your city has to offer, and obviously if there's any connections to deacons in your area, that's a really special thing to do. We did a Rowdies game, which is our pro soccer team. And we are lucky to have one of the goalies is a former Wake Forest soccer player. So that's pretty cool as well. That there's a community that does a Hit the Bikes event, which is kind of tags along with Hit the Bricks, a fundraiser for the Piccolo Cancer Research Fund. There's communities that do picnics, or just even communities that'll go together to a sporting event in their area, like a local sports team. So it's really whatever you want to come up with, and I'll show you in just a moment some ways that you can get involved. Any questions or thoughts or ideas on other programs? All right, well, let's move forward. Some ways that you all can get involved. If you're in a community where there is an active Wake community and volunteer leadership already, Evan and his team will be happy to facilitate an introduction. We're going to talk about the volunteer website and toolkit shortly, but it's really what you want to make of it. So that's really, really up to you. You can join a committee or your Wake community board. And let me tell you, as being the president of a Wake community, we always love to have additional volunteers join and get great ideas, because it's nice to have these programs that happen year after year, but it's kind of wonderful to get new ideas and new interest in. And there's always people that know other Wake Forest people in the community that can help bring them into the programs as well. You can attend an alumni event if there is already a active Wake community. If there's not an active Wake community where you live, you could be the point person for that. And I will say you're very, very supported by the Alumni Engagement Office. And it does take some time to build sometimes that community up, but once it starts going, you really can get a lot of traction and really have some fun in your area. So, you know, you can volunteer to plan an event or support a signature event or bring one of the signature events to your community. You can promote events on social media. That always helps get more people involved. So you can engage with the @WFU alumni on Twitter and Instagram. I think that's correct. Evan, correct me if I'm wrong. And you can also share your ideas for events and programs with alumni at wfu.edu or your community leaders. So on the community alumni page, you will see that you can go to your community and find out who the leaders are, and there's ways to email us right from there as well. So that's great. If you attend an event and network and socialize with your fellow Deeks, you actually also get your E in the Loyal Deek program. So that's your engage, and that gets you one step closer to getting that Loyal Deek status and getting your swag, which I mentioned earlier, which is really always exciting. I get excited whenever that box comes in every year. So that's some ways to get involved. There's also a new volunteer toolkit website that was launched in January. So we'll take a moment and go there for a moment. And you're going to see some things here, which will have the overview of the Wake Communities program. Again, reiterate how to get involved and some resources for you, like top tips for the Wake Communities, staff and role responsibilities, volunteer board roles, event planning, guides, and social media tips. And there's also, like I mentioned, a Facebook forum. So let me pull up the website here. Okay. So this is the Community Volunteers website. And again, you're going to see lots of great information on this page as we go through. And we'll send this out to you. So everybody that's on the call, just so your reptilian brains aren't worried about this, we're going to follow up to share contact information, the slide deck, and some of these resources, including the link to this site. So you don't have to be scribbling down how to get there right now. But like I mentioned, you can see where all the communities are throughout the country. And you can click here to find your Wake community or to even share this. Like I mentioned, if you can help by sharing this with your friends and family members so that they know how to get involved with their Wake communities, that's also very helpful to us. It will talk about the signature programs in here. So each of those programs that we talked about today, from the Wake Welcomes event to the local love feast to the Pro Humanitate Days. So that's all as well on this website. That's a resource for you. And then volunteer leadership. So this will go into how you can get involved. Like I mentioned, there's a Facebook forum that you can join that will help you with ideas or even ways to ask other people for ideas on how to get involved. And the resources that I mentioned are all here. So those tips for the Wake communities, what the responsibilities are for you being on the board. Again, you're very supported. The alumni engagement group will send great swag that you can bring to the events, which is really nice, and give out to the people that attend. So it's really, they make it easy and fun and have great ideas and help us with their guidance as well. And you can submit a community event on here as well. So if you have an idea and you want to submit that, there's an opportunity right there. So I'm going to pause one more time for questions. And see if anyone has any other questions that they would like, because that really ends our prepared remarks today. Like I mentioned, we will be working to share contact information, the slide deck, some other resources, including the link to that website, so that you have all of that at your fingertips. And you know, we're happy to brainstorm as well. We'd love to help you, even pair you up with another community that's maybe similar to yours to talk about how they got started or what they've done to ramp up getting more people there. And we can talk about that. I followed, I'll just give one more little insight. I followed David Bates in Wake Palm Beach, his Facebook group page, and got a lot of ideas from him on what he was doing, and took some of them and started rolling with that on our Wake Tampa St. Pete page. So you can get ideas from the other volunteers as well. We're also working, I'll just mention, on an advanced webinar to dive deeper into getting involved and helping with the communities themselves, but also just how alums can be involved in and beyond their communities as well. So I want to thank you all for being involved today and your interest in this. And it's so important to have people that are interested, and we really appreciate your interest in this and want to help in any way we can. So again, I'll open this for questions if anybody has any.
And
Evan,
Susan,
is there anything else? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I have one question for you, but I wanted to give anyone else an opportunity. So I will ask one question, but I'll kind of leave it open for a second here to see if we get any questions. Okay, well, yeah, I want to reiterate, Susan, thanks to all of you for being on the call. We will follow up with you. Susan, my question is can you give us, you know, a 30 or 60 second kind of what was your entry point to being involved with Wake Tampa St. Petersburg?
Yeah, I had moved away. Thanks, Evan. That's great. I had moved away, and when I came back, I just, you know, always find that whenever I'm talking to someone else from Wake Forest, there's an immediate connection that's really special, and it brings me back to my days at Wake Forest. So I wanted to get involved, and I actually had somebody from the development office come and visit me, and we talked about getting involved, and that's part of what started it. But I also looked for the community, and then when the development officer came to visit, she got me all excited, and I said, okay, put me down to join up. So that actually helped nudge me along as well. But and then we just started going. I said, well, what can I do to help? And like I said, lots of support from you, Evan, and your office, and we're very lucky to have that. And I know that everybody that wants to get involved will have that as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And from that start to hear the chair of the Communities Committee on the Alumni Council and helping lead this webinar. So thank you, Susan.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome, and great to have you all on today. And again, please feel free to reach out to Evan or myself for any questions. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and weekend.